Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And, sometimes I just don't know what to say about the game industry. Today has been just so bizarre. And that starts off with Nintendo. They just announced some brand new hardware. And, that might sound really exciting at first. I know we all want the Switch successor, but instead, I'll say that this new hardware is alarming, to say the least. Yeah, we're going to get into all of that in a little bit. And then also we'll talk about Sony's second flop in a matter of months. If you thought the Concord situation was bad, which it was, but this doesn't seem all that much better. And I don't even really think this is a big surprise because Sony's decision-making right now is suspect at best. Let's just go and get right into things, though. Starting off with Xbox. We have a couple of different topics for them, and the first one here, in my opinion, is amusing, just because, I kind of enjoy when the obnoxious part of the game community, has to eat their words. You all probably know who I'm talking about here. I won't name any names. But something that this part of the community has been pushing is that there's no excitement for Metaphor Refantazio because of Xbox's marketing deal. I think that's just ridiculous and illogical because you can easily point to other Japanese games that Xbox has also had the marketing rights for, and you know what? They had a lot of success across all platforms. Yakuza Like a Dragon, Tales of Arise, and Persona 3 Reload immediately comes to mind. As I've been saying all along, Xbox has aired Refantazio at multiple different showcases, so people are aware that it exists. It's not like this is an unheard of game or anything like that. Xbox did their job in that sense. But considering Refantazio is a brand new IP, I feel like fans were still waiting to see if they should be excited or not. And that's where the reviews comes in. It has a 94 overall score on Metacritic, and since then, it shot right up to the top 5 bestsellers on Steam. What's even better about this situation, though, is that Refantazio Xbox ads are now showing up in New York City. You can see here, and it's pretty blatant. So again, Xbox is definitely doing their job in a sense that they are bringing awareness for this new IP. And now it's really just up to Atlas to make it a good game, which they very much did. And like I've been saying all along, if it's a good game, well, then word of mouth will spread and it will sell well, which we're already seeing early signs of that. I just don't understand why we have to have nonsensical discourse like this when you can easily poke holes into the logic by doing seconds, and I mean seconds, worth of research. Now, something that I'm not a huge fan of is how Xbox does their super limited edition consoles. Seems like at least a few times every year they announce a special design controller and console. And the only way that you can get them is through some kind of sweepstake, which that in itself, I think is perfectly fine. Some of their designs are elaborate enough that they're not really feasible for retail. I'll come back to my critique here in just a moment, but they are doing another sweepstake for an Indiana Jones console and controller. In order to enter the sweepstake, they said fans and families can visit the Microsoft Experience Centers in London, Sydney, and New York to experience a stunning display for the holidays from November 12th through January 6th. Solve the puzzle to be entered into a sweepstakes for a chance to win the exclusive custom Xbox console and controller at the end of the holiday season. Don't worry if you cannot make it to a Microsoft Experience Center to try and solve the mystery on your own. There will be another chance via the Bethesda social channels. So, it'll be a fun way to participate, and you can see the designs here. It's not my favorite design that they've ever done, but I'd still say that it looks pretty good, and it'll be a great collector piece for anybody who wins it. If I were to make one critique, though, is that I do feel like they could do so much more than just doing a sweepstake for items like this. I mean, they could still do limited edition consoles and controllers for these sweepstakes to make them super special for whoever wins. But whatever happened to their Xbox Series X wraps? They released a Starfield wrap last year, and it looks really good. I have one myself. But since then, they've done zilch with those wraps. So, I don't know. I just wonder why they don't make wraps more often for designs like this, because I think people would pay. But I don't know. Maybe they just don't want our money. It is what it is, I guess. Now, here's actually some good news. Ubisoft is starting to take Steam a lot more serious. They finally figured out that Steam is much more important than releasing their games exclusively on their own PC storefront, where they probably didn't sell all that well. Hence another reason why Ubisoft is currently in the situation that they're in. And that's not a good one. So it seems like they finally caved and they will start to release their games day and date on Steam. Assassin's Creed Shadows will be a part of that initiative, but not just that. They're also going back to their previous games and they're adding Steam achievements. Now, so far they've only done this for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but the hope here is that this is just the beginning. I mean, it would be really nice to have Steam achievements for some of their games that are missing them currently. I know for me, I'd love to see the Rayman games get Steam achievements, but this is at the very least a good start, if anything else. Ubisoft is seemingly listening, which, is better than before. I mean, they were kind of forced to listen, but that's where we are. Okay, so I want to talk about Sony because they have been all over the map in 2024. It's been a very hit or miss year for them and their first party lineup. They opened up with Helldivers 2, and that turned out to be a surprise hit. Now, we can debate about how they handled its post-release, but the game itself was good and had a very successful launch. They then had Concord. It got shut down in mere weeks. It's one of the biggest flops of all time. But thankfully, the same day that it got shut down, we also got Astrobot. This kind of made up for whatever they were trying to pull off with Concord, because Astrobot is a legitimate Game of the Year contender and one of the best 3D platformers that we've seen in a very, very long time. But now, just 1 month later, we get the Until Dawn remake. A remake for a PlayStation 4 game that you can already play on your PlayStation 5 through backwards compatibility at 60 frames per second. Suffice to say, nobody was asking for this game to be remade. And I think what makes this situation even worse is that Sony is trying to charge $60. $60 for a remake that nobody asked for. Sony is just completely off their rocker if they thought that this was going to be a coveted item at this price. This is absolutely ridiculous. And it actually just got even worse in a myriad of ways. So let's just go and get right into the crux of the issue, and that's its performance. So Digital Foundry analyzed the Until Dawn remake, and I was honestly shocked when they revealed the results. Now keep in mind that you can still play the original game on your PlayStation 5 at 60 frames per second. And because it's a PlayStation 4 game, it looks fairly good. This is not a super old retro game. It might not be the best looking game in the world, but it looks fine for what it is. It doesn't look bad. Yet here we are on the PlayStation 5, and this remake is locked at 30 frames per second. Yes, you heard that right. There's not a performance mode at all. And that's not the only problem. Even at 30 frames per second, you would at least think that would be a stable 30 frames per second, but no, it has frame pacing issues. I mean, this is just mind-blowing. Somebody needs to sit down and explain to me what in the world Sony is doing here. This comes off as nothing more than a low-effort, blatant cash grab. And I understand that they have an Until Dawn movie in development, and there's rumors that there's a possible sequel in the way. And that's all fine and dandy, okay, whatever. But that still doesn't excuse this poor performance for a $60 remake that nobody asked for. That's the big problem here. Nobody even asked for this remake in the first place, and somehow they still gave us a poor performing remake at $60. So lo and behold, it's about as coveted as you might expect. According to this article by True Trophies, Until Dawn's PlayStation 5 player count is staggeringly low and is one of the worst debuts we have seen in quite some time. Yes, even worse than Concord. They then went on to say that Until Dawn's debut is 28.6% smaller than Concord's. The PlayStation Studios horror game saw 98.5% fewer players than The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. The small pool of PlayStation 5 players could be down to the lack of marketing. Now, I disagree with their marketing slant here. I think this simply comes down to Until Dawn being an undesirable remake that nobody asked for. Let's be honest about this. This would have been a completely different situation if they would have remade something like, let's say, Bloodborne, which still needs an upgrade and is actually highly requested. This just comes off as Sony being tone deaf at best and pushing a blatant low-effort cash grab at worst. And here's my thing. People can do what they want with their own money. If you want to buy something like the PlayStation 5 Pro, I think that's fine. I think that if you have the ability to get it, I think a lot of people will get enjoyment out of that specific console, especially as we move further into the generation. There's going to be more games that can take advantage of what it has to offer. I'm not going to discourage anybody from getting something like that. But in this case, this is completely different to me. Do not buy this Until Dawn remake. We need to send Sony a message that this type of stuff is not okay. We expect better from a company of their caliber. This is inexcusable. 30 frames per second for a $60 remake, not even a highly requested remake. This is just a flat-out embarrassment, and I'll just leave it at that. Now, as for Nintendo, though, they had their own bizarre announcement today, though maybe not as egregious as we just talked about for Sony. I'd say this is more on the side of amusing, if anything else. But yes, they announced a new alarm clock. I'll say that again. A Nintendo-themed alarm clock that they're calling Alarmo. Now, this alarm clock has motion sensors, and it basically tracks and analyzes your sleep and how you wake up. Once you get into bed without any kind of button press, it can put on sleep time music for you without any kind of button press, and when it wakes you up with its alarm, it'll kind of annoy you with Nintendo-themed music until you get out of bed, and then it'll shut off when you stand up and leave. Now, from what I understand, you can turn on button mode to make it more similar to a normal alarm clock, though that might be defeating some of its purpose. And I'd say on paper, this is not a bad idea per se. It's kind of fun in a Nintendo kind of way, but as I was watching this trailer, I was like, okay, it's a novelty item, I get it. Most people don't really need something like this. Most people have phones that can do a lot of what Alarmo does. But you know, if it's like $40 or maybe $50 max, it might be a fun thing to get. That's where this announcement becomes a little bit more alarming though, because this isn't a $50 alarm clock. No, this instead is $100. And I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily look at this thing as a premium looking device. It looks like it's made out of plastic, kind of similar to a toy. Like, I don't hate this thing. It's a fun idea. But its price is a huge sticking point for what you're getting. So, I mean, if you really want it, you can get it on their website right now if you have Nintendo Switch Online, or it'll go live at other retailers in early 2025. Until then, though, there you go. Nintendo's new hardware that we never knew we wanted. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. And until next time, peace out.